Just look at one. I realized you must just look at one.
For her, it's yeah, I was just wondering because right. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Shirley.
Hi, Shirley. Yeah, nice to meet you too. Are you? Where are you in your studies?
I'm a third-year computer science specialist.
Very nice.
Yeah. And I work with David on his STS team.
I figured I could see you guys do each other.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you guys for making the time to be here today.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, thank you for all the work. I mean, our investment has been way worse.
I have one brought for you today.
Oh, wow.
Is this mic okay for better audio?
Okay.
Now the only thing I will ask, so I'm gonna just hit record, is that you don't tap it, just talk into it normally.
Okay, so we're gonna pass it back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So try not to, tap or bang on the table.
So
Sometimes people do that.
So whoever's speaking should use the mic, and we're just gonna pass it
just
between
pass
us.
it.
Okay, we'll treat it nicely.
How far away do you need to
Is this
be?
okay?
Just normal distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a podcast.
Yeah.
With a live audience.
But off screen, not so much.
Fluffy. Oh, yeah, fluffy again.
Let us know when you start. Actually, I can also give an introduction before we start recording. So this is day 2 of the UofT AI Ethics Conference. I see some new people and a lot of returning members from yesterday. And so, as mentioned, our first panel is the Embedded Ethics Education Initiative. And so we have here Sheila McElraith and David Liu. And we're also filming it, as you can tell. So that's why we've moved to this room, because we want this to be distributed across platforms after the panel as well. So thank you for joining us here. And we can get started. You can introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Shirley. I'm a third-year computer science specialist.
Yeah, and we'll be your moderators. Okay. If we're ready, then we can start with the panel.
Sure.
Okay. So since the panel is about embedded ethics education, E3I, the natural question is, can you give a brief description about it and then follow with how E3I started as founding members of this initiative? What sparked the idea? What was the motivation? And how did the group come together?
So first I wanted to say thank you very much for organizing this event and for all of the effort that you put into organizing it. These are such an important component of undergraduate student experience and graduate student experience. And so big kudos to you and all the others who have been organizing this event. And E3I is really happy to be part of this. So thank you for inviting us. So I'm Sheila McElraith, as was mentioned previously, and I'm one of 4 people that comprise the core team of E3I, the University of Toronto Embedded Ethics Education Initiative. David Liu is one of our partners in crime, but the team comprises Diane Horton, who is a teaching faculty member in the Department of Computer Science, David Liu, who's our Associate Chair of Undergraduate Studies and also in teaching faculty in computer science. Me, I'm also a research faculty member in computer science. My specialty is AI. And I'm also affiliated with the Schwartz-Reisman Institute for Technology and Society, where I'm an associate director. And importantly, Stephen Coyne, who many of you may know, who is joint teaching faculty, joint between the philosophy department and the computer science department, but trained as a philosopher, a PhD in philosophy and in ethics in particular. So that comprises the team. So the mission of the of E3I is to endow our students with the knowledge, skills, and incentive to incorporate ethical considerations into the design, development, and deployment of technology while they're here at the university, but also throughout their careers as computer scientists, to really give them those skills and expertise and awareness. And the way that we do that is by creating small modules, 1 to 2 hour modules, which we embed into select computer science courses. Those modules very carefully pair some sort of technology that the students are learning in their class with an ethical consideration that ideally we hope will be exposed and uncovered in the way that we teach the material. And so and we use discovery learning and active learning and all sorts of other techniques to help students really discover these things for themselves. The philosophy of our program is that we're trying to teach students how to think and not what to think. We do not want to proselytize. We want to make these discussions safe, and we want to really encourage. There's no right answer. That we really want to help them to navigate the landscape, framing them through techniques that are often used in philosophy to help understand what those ethical issues are and how we can think about them from different viewpoints, using different stakeholders and really taking different perspectives on problems. So the modules are developed in partnership between philosophers and the computer science faculty members and the larger computer science team. And they are similarly delivered by both a philosopher and the faculty member in computer science. And Steve Coyne in particular is the person who's the boots on the ground right now, who does a lot of the development. We also have some fantastic TAs, both TAs in philosophy and TAs in computer science, who support those efforts and make the program work. We've got about, I guess, I don't want to talk for too long, but just one more element. As we've been developing this program, we've been doing some assessment of the program to make sure that we were achieving our pedagogical goals and that we were being effective. And because classroom time is a limited resource, and we don't want to take time away from professors. They're already working with a short time. We wanted to make sure that we were doing things impactfully. And so we've done a variety of assessment, much of it led by Diane Horton, with the rest of us in supporting roles, where we were assessing both pedagogical, both was it working? How well was it working? What was the cadence with which we needed to teach, and was there impact beyond the classroom? Were students going out and actually using this in their PEYs or in their programs? And so that has informed the design and the development. I don't know. I've been talking for quite a while. Maybe I'll pass off to David. Do you want to talk about the beginnings of the program, or do you want me to do that?
Why don't you start at the beginning?
Okay, good. Yeah. So now that you know what E3I is, I can talk a little bit about the genesis, which is that I think this originated partly through happenstance. So I do work with someone, or was doing work with someone named Barbara Gross, who's now a professor emeritus at Harvard University, and Harvard had started an embedded ethics program, the first embedded ethics program that I know of in the world at Harvard University. Harvard has, I think, 5,000 undergraduate students. We have, I think, at the University of Toronto, 70,000. So immediately there were some differences. But what we did was we invited Barbara and also her philosophy partner, Jeff Behrens, to come to the University of Toronto, and they gave talks. They both gave talks in 2019, and we started the ball rolling from there. And they were very supportive. It was clear very much from the outset that we were going to have to do things quite differently. We had far fewer resources than a very affluent American university, and we just had different needs for our students and because of our setup. But they were helpful in sort of getting us started. And we partnered very early on with the Schwartz-Reisman Institute. And so E3I, when it first began, was a partnership between the Department of Computer Science and the Schwartz-Reisman Institute, and we gained a lot of support from them. At the outset, it was Diane David and me working on it, and we had somebody named Benjamin Wald, who was a philosopher at the Schwartz-Reisman Institute. He was doing a postdoctoral fellowship. Emma McClure was another philosopher who came on board, and also Miriam Majetti. So we started by developing a pilot. We started by consulting our department, getting some feedback, honing our design. We then did a pilot in one course, and we also did a control in another course. We started our assessment right from the get-go. And from there, we blossomed into, we got support from the Faculty of Arts and Science very generously to eventually hire somebody, and we were able to hire Steve Coyne, who spends part of his time doing E3I and part of his time teaching in philosophy. And that really helped us to transition to where we are now, which is a full program throughout the 4 years of the computer science undergraduate curriculum that we're very proud of, and that gives just enough and not too much ethics education to our students to realize the mission that I discussed. So I'm going to hand over the microphone to somebody else now. David, it can be you, or back to
Do you like to add on to?
David, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Sheila. I mean, that was an amazing introduction. Thank you, Sheila. I guess I'll just add, and I think this will come up a little bit later in the discussion. This program has been going on, I think, for 5 years now. The first embedded ethics module was delivered in CSC 111, the first year computer science course that actually I was teaching back in the winter of 2021. So one of the things that I think that we're really proud of in all the work that we've done is that we started with a one course pilot, one module pilot, and from there we blossomed into, I use the word blossom again, but we blossomed into, I think, 4 modules, 4 courses the next year, then 7, then 10, 11, 12, and so I think we're up to, I think, either 12 or 13 courses now across the Department of Computer Science. As Sheila said, spanning all 4 years of our program, required first and second year courses, but also several different electives at the 3rd and 4th year level. And I think one of the things that is really striking about this effort is that we've made partnerships with so many different instructors, faculty members in the department. So whereas we started small and really did some rigorous assessment to make sure that this model made sense from a pedagogical perspective and also from a resource perspective, we were able to kind of scale this up over, again, the span of 5 years, which is kind of all looking back at this now. But it's a really great feeling to have.
Yeah, so just to build off of that kind of motivation for E3I a little bit more, what were some of, or even the biggest gaps that you guys saw in how computer science was being taught that made you really feel like something needed to change?
Yeah, so Sheila and I were chatting about this, and I think there's a couple of different things. So one thing that I wanted to highlight is I think our program and our courses, our curriculum, was really excellent at developing technical skills, whether that was in programming, software engineering, mathematical proof and reasoning. But one of the things that we were not doing as much of in our courses, our curriculum that our students were taking across all their years of study, was in talking about and really interrogating the social and ethical implications and impacts of their work. And so what we were finding when students were going on internships or graduating and coming back and chatting with us is that this was one area where they felt like they wanted more, that they felt prepared technically for their roles in the software industry or as researchers, but where they felt a little bit less prepared to have discussions or kind of rich discussions with their colleagues or with external stakeholders was in kind of talking about the implications of their work, how their technical work would affect a wide variety of people kind of beyond their immediate software team, for example, but kind of to the outside public. And so this was an area where I think there was a lot of student interest in kind of learning more. Some students were getting this through elective courses that they were taking, including CSC 300, a Computers and Society course, which I think we might touch on a little bit later. But they wanted to see that, I think, more across their courses in their curriculum.
Yeah, thanks, David. I agree with all that. One thing I'll add, just as I was reflecting on the question, was that as computer scientists, we have a set of metrics that we use to evaluate how well whatever it is that we're developing how good it is. Maybe we runtime or scalability or generalization. We have a set of computer science metrics, but when we think about, and I think one of the things that we wanted to do was to really broaden that set of metrics that students use when they're thinking about the technology that they're building, to go beyond the classical mathematical or computer science metrics, to really think about, to understand that their systems are being deployed within a world, that they're impacting people, and to think about what the implications are of their technology, and what sort of broader socio-technical metrics they need to be using to evaluate their software systems, or even to ask the question of whether they should be building those software systems, or whether they should be building them or deploying them in a different way that addresses some of these broader metrics. So I think that was something that was really important, that we were hoping that would be infused from the embedded ethics program.
And just to kind of build on this point, one of the things that I think attracts a lot of people, including myself, to the field of computer science is this sense of empowerment that you get with being able to write code, to build software that will get the computer to do something cool, that will be able to process huge amounts of data in ways that you wouldn't be able to do so by hand, or to build websites like what people use on a daily basis, or build apps. And I think this sense of empowerment is a really great thing. It's a really great motivating factor for students. But it's also something that I think comes with maybe potentially like sometimes a little bit of a blind spot of saying, getting kind of wrapped up in the sense of, well, I'm going to build this because it's cool, because I find it interesting, because it's really powerful and really compelling, but not necessarily thinking as much what is going to be the impact of this thing that I'm building beyond it being a cool, like a thing that I find to be. And so a lot of the motivation, or maybe part of this gap, was exactly as Sheila said, in thinking about the question of, why am I designing this? What is the impact of this work going to have beyond just kind of the technical achievements of creating this?
That's really, really well said. Thank you. Yesterday, actually, during the first day of the conference, we had a workshop on interpretability, and we were going through all these metrics, and people in the audience were asking, but why do we want to maximize this? Why do we want to do that? So I think the goal of our conference and the motivation for starting E3I, it really resonates with us. It's amazing to see how E3I has gotten so, blossomed. But I also wanted to ask about what were the biggest challenges in starting this initiative, whether there was any pushback at all, or even just challenges in embedding this into a technical course, whether that's designing the curriculum or how others accepted or reacted to this idea at first.
So I'll start, and I'm sure that David will have some things to add. So I think at the very outset, the first challenge we had was finding somebody in philosophy who could help us. And that took quite a bit of time. And I think originally we were thinking that we would do what people at something like what people at Harvard had done, where the program really was led by the philosophy department. And then we sort of realized that we had different requirements. We really wanted to pair it with, we wanted to get technical insights, and we wanted to address mitigations. We just didn't want to just talk about or uncover these ethical dilemmas, but we wanted to empower students to understand what they could do about it. And so we really needed to have a really tight coupling between computer science and philosophy, and to have a different design model for our courses. And that took us a little while to get through. The other thing I will say is always a challenge. It's interesting, there are efforts at what's referred to as responsible computing in the United States, and some people try to add, a sprinkle of ethical considerations or responsibility to every course. And I think one of the things that we found challenging was really thinking about wanting to select courses that exposed a different set of issues, and to try to find a really natural pairing, not to force, this is something, you have to have your broccoli once a week, and we're going to serve it with pasta or with fish or with whatever else we're eating. We really wanted to find that nice pairing of a technical issue where some ethical consideration really emerged. And we spent a lot of time between us, going through our different courses, thinking about the curricula and different courses and where those natural ethical considerations emerged. And then also thinking, and then just the logistics, scheduling within a course and then working with our faculty to gain buy-in and really understand whether they had the resources in terms of time within their curriculum to insert this. So those were a couple of challenges that I'd like to mention. David has some others.
So I guess I'll mention two other things. So in terms of kind of departmental feeling, kind of sense of this as we were kind of getting started, and this is largely credit to Sheila and Diane. There were some concerns that this program, ethics would be an opportunity, for example, for either the E3I team or individual instructors to, I guess, proselytize, for lack of a better word, to really kind of champion and put into the classroom a particular viewpoint or a particular viewpoint that maybe not everyone would agree with. And so one of the things that I think came about as a result of this discussion with individual faculty members who had raised these concerns were kind of these guiding pedagogical principles, I think that Sheila mentioned earlier, including the fact that we would be really focusing on teaching skills about how to think about ethical considerations, how to weigh different viewpoints, and not championing one particular viewpoint and saying that this is the way that you must approach this, or this is the quote-unquote right answer for any particular ethical consideration that may come up in the classroom. And this was something that I think was really important to kind of stress really from the start of designing the first modules and then kind of expanding the program as a way to alleviate this concern among some faculty members that this would be kind of just one particular way of thinking that we'd be kind of pushing on all of our students. The other thing I wanted to mention that is very much related to what Sheila said about the natural pairings in the courses, which was really so important to us, was the fact that I think one of the things that I'm certainly very proud of, and I think everyone in the embedded with ethics team is that this was a real bottom-up initiative. So while we did have support from the chair of our department, and we were able to receive some funding, and then also from SRI, Short Teaching Institute, we did a lot of work in working with individual instructors, individual faculty members of the courses that we were looking at to co-develop and then later co-deliver these modules. So this was very much not a model where we just kind of sat in our ivory tower, figuring out which courses we were going to drop in a module. It was very much a collaborative effort that took lots of time, lots of meeting time over the summer mainly, working with individual instructors for the courses that we were looking at and saying, working with them to identify this type of pairing. And this was a lot of work, a lot of meetings. It maybe in some sense would have been more streamlined if we had just kind of tried to design the modules ourselves. But I think as a result of working with the instructors, we were able to get more authentic pairings, more authentic modules being delivered, and then ultimately not just kind of, having a great curricular impact, we're able to kind of better convey to the students in these courses that these topics in these modules that we were looking at were genuinely important for the course material because we had buy-in from the instructor of the course as well. This was not sort of a guest lecture where the instructor kind of disappeared for an hour or 2 hours. This is something where the instructor was really there. They were part of the module development and they were part of the module delivery as well. And so that brought a sense of, I guess, buy-in from the instructors that I think also made a difference for the students as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear those insights from a student's perspective. Those like module course pairings, like thoughtfulness of like E3I really like does come out when you're experiencing those courses. And I know that E3I has actually studied its own effects. And so we wanted to ask, what surprised you most in that research regarding the effectiveness of these modules or anything else interesting that you've discovered?
So we've done this we started with a study of the first year, our first delivery. We were one of the benefits of having 70,000 students in an undergraduate population, or more so having a large undergraduate computer science course, courses is that we were able to run a study that was statistically significant. We had enough students, and we were also able to have a control group. So we were able to do good science. And that was really nice for us. So in our first study, we were really wanting to understand students' attitudes and efficacy and their sense of efficacy towards ethical issues. In the second study, we were trying to do a longitudinal study. So we wanted to ask ourselves, is more better? What is the frequency or the cadence with which we want to deliver embedded ethics modules? And in the final study, we were wanting to study whether there was impact beyond the classroom. Either were we encouraging students to go out and take other ethics courses within the university, or when they were in summer employment or in PEY, were they actually finding that they were uncovering, looking at problems differently, or feeling empowered or able to act in different ways. And I would say that I don't know whether surprised is the right word, but I was really delighted to see the outcomes of those three studies. The first one did indeed demonstrate a statistically significant impact that we were having on student efficacy with respect to dealing with ethical matters. The second one really did, I guess that was interesting. It uncovered that sometimes more is not better. Which was a good answer for us since we were resource bounded, that really it was sufficient to have one module in a term, that if you had two modules in a term, it didn't really, even though they were in different courses, it didn't increase students' abilities or skills. But that students needed sort of a booster shot, that if they had a module and then they hadn't had a module for a while, they really did, their skills or sense of efficacy waned a little bit, and so they needed some sort of a booster shot. So that was actually a really interesting thing for us to discover, and it really informed the cadence with which we decided to design our program and the number of offerings that we did. And then I will say finally, with respect to the study about impact beyond the classroom, I think that, to me, that was the one that was in some ways most gratifying in the sense that we got so many, not only as a result of the study, but also testimonials from students really talking about how this had been so eye-opening for them, how it had really broadened their perspective on their role and their responsibilities as computer scientists, and then very specific instances of issues and on different industrial placements where there were issues that they saw that they were able to where they felt empowered to actually raise issues and have a conversation with people they were working with about what went on. I think one of the interesting things about computer science in particular, and probably this will resonate with many people in the audience, is that there's a little bit of an inversion that goes on because our technology is moving so quickly. Often the new grads are the ones who are in positions of responsibility beyond what they might otherwise be in, because they have the latest skill and training. And as people go into management, they don't have time to stay at the bleeding edge of technology. And so often students who are just recent grads are given a lot of responsibility for developing the technology without the oversight that they might have had were they in a more traditional field. And so I think that really empowering students to think more broadly about the impact of their what they're doing and to raise concerns was something that was really, really powerful and that we saw borne out in this final study that we did. David.
I don't have too much to add from what Sheila said, but maybe I'll highlight that second study. We looked in particular at students over multiple semesters, and having enrolled in courses that had embedded ethics modules across these different semesters. And in particular, we found that their scores on this ease scale, which measures attitudes and self-efficacy towards ethical considerations in technology, they increased over the course of a semester when they took this, when they had a module, and then the subsequent semester, as with I think a lot of things, especially if there's a summer in between, the subsequent semester the scores were sort of back down a little bit, but then after taking a subsequent module, the scores were back up. But in particular, I really want to highlight this point. At the time, we didn't have as many modules as we have right now, but we were able to compare students who had in that second semester one course with an embedded ethics module versus 2 courses with embedded ethics modules, even though these were different courses. And what we found was that there was no statistically significant difference between students who had taken the 1 module versus the 2 modules. And to me, and I think we said this in the paper as well, this didn't mean that one of the modules was bad or anything like that, but rather that it wasn't always the case that it was sort of like a linear increase or anything like that in terms of the number of modules relating to kind of improvements on this scale. I think that one of the things that we took away from that, which Sheila mentioned, and I'll sort of underline this, was sort of this caution against trying to be, I guess, overly ambitious or stretching ourselves too thin and trying to get an embedded ethics module inside every single computer science course, for example. This might be a natural thing to kind of think of when you're kind of designing a program like this, but we sort of knew from the outside, I think this would be logistically infeasible, impossible. But what the study kind of showed us is that it wouldn't even necessarily have that much of an impact. Now, of course, further work can be done, kind of like, especially now with the number of modules that we have. But in particular, I think we were heartened by the fact that if we try to use our resources well, targeting specific courses, trying to target different years of study so that students were seeing these embedded ethics modules, for example, not just crammed into the first 2 years and then never again for the last 2 years, but really spread across the 4 different years, that we could have a lasting impact on at least these measures.
Thank you. I really like the combination of like various assessments, including both qualitative and quantitative. Like the testimonials we can't measure on a scale, but those mean a lot as well. Yeah. So we have more questions, but I also wanted to see if the audience, if anyone wants to ask a question now, or later. Yes.
Very good talk. I'm very interested in ethics, and it was very nice that you guys did it. Like, this is something that they teach us in philosophy, that ethics is something that you can learn. And I just wanted to ask, like, when you were talking about the 2 the 2 modules versus 1, and there was no significant increase. Was like on 2 different topics, or it was the same module repeated another time?
Right, so I can, sorry. Yes, thank you for your question. So these 2 modules were in completely different courses. I don't remember exactly which 2 we looked at, but I think they were 2 third-year courses that were in very different topics. One was in algorithms, and I think the other was in something else that I'm blanking on right now. So they were in different topics, they were in different modules, and I guess just to kind of underline the point, each course in which we deliver a module typically has a unique module. So we've also tried to be fairly deliberate in not repeating or having significant overlap between different modules and different courses, because the way that especially at the upper years, because the way that our program, the computer science program is structured, the first 2 years are quite fixed. There's certain kind of required courses that students need to take, and then the 3rd and 4th year are very open. There's a lot of flexibility in the courses that students can take, and so we actually wanted to avoid the situation where students may take 2 completely different, 2 different 3rd year or 4th year elective courses, but end up getting the same module and kind of feeling like, oh man, I already saw this, why am I seeing it again? So we deliberately baked that into the design right from the very beginning. So while we do have, I think, 2 first-year courses, where, for example, we have a module that's the same across the courses, there are exclusions of each other. There's CSC 148 and 111, so students only take one, but not both. And so we were kind of okay mainly using the module there, but for all of the other courses, we have different module topics.
Yeah, you.
Thank you so much for starting this. I actually go to UofT Scarborough, and I have like interdisciplinary programs, and I always wish that my technical courses would cover a bit more like ethical components. So it's like really like inspiring to hear that you both started this. I do want to ask, like, what are some of the specific topics you cover in the modules, and like how do they connect to like the tech part, like is it like algorithms and bias or like environmental impact?
I'll just say before turning it over to Sheila that one of the things we'd love to make sure gets disseminated is we have a website where we actually post our modules. I'm not sure what the best way to get this URL out there is. I can write it on the board or I can say it, but you can definitely find more details of our modules there. But for a quick overview, Sheila?
Sure. So thank you. So the question, I know you don't have a microphone, so I'll just repeat the essence of the question that you're from UTSC, and just asking about some of the topics that we're covering. And again, there many of them are listed on our website. One thing I wanted to say, actually, since you are at UTSC, another dimension of E3I when we were thinking about wanting to have impact was that we wanted to have impact on the university as well. And we believe that this mission, the E3I mission, was not restricted to computer science. And so one of the things that we were interested in doing was a little bit of franchising, for lack of a better word. We always say it, and then we say for lack of a better word, because I think it's evocative, but perhaps not doing sufficient gravitas to our educational system. So we did reach out. We have piloted modules in a number of other different courses within the Faculty of Arts and Science at the undergraduate level. But also, I'm very happy to say that UTSC is exploring beginning a program of this sort on the UTSC campus as well. I don't know, you may be too far along to be impacted by it, but we are really interested in doing that. And one of the things that we did do that is easily accessible from there's an E3I site, both the Schwartz-Reisman Institute and one in computer science, that we did a workshop where we had a workshop that had over 100 participants, 80 different academic representation from 80 different universities that came in and understood how to build an embedded ethics a module. And so that was something that was important. Sorry, but I'm not answering your question. And actually, maybe, I don't know, David, whether you want to, I actually anticipated this question and I printed out our list of courses and some of the pairings because I can never remember all of them, but I'll just select a couple and David can elaborate. So within machine learning, for example, of course, AI is an obvious example. So there we were looking at recommender systems and objective functions and people's preferences and notions of autonomy and manipulation, whether a recommender system was actually manipulating you or whether you had autonomy in terms of where you were, what bundles of things you saw, for example, in a recommender system, or whether it was entrenching you towards a particular viewpoint. Perhaps with your compliance, because we all want to see what we want to see, and then just talking about mitigations as well, which was another important component to really think about how we might mitigate in that particular instance, and serve up a sort of basket, a more heterogeneous basket of things, so that people didn't become too entrenched in one particular viewpoint or one particular set of products. And just one other example is in our game design course, which for those of you who are on the St. George campus know, Steve Engels does such a good job of teaching. But of course, there's an example of building cool technology. And of course, when you think about building a game, you want a game that people just want to play more and more and more of. But then we had to step, and that's indeed what some of the metrics are, back to my comment about thinking about how we evaluate our technology. And then, so Steve Engels and Steve Coyne had this shtick where Steve Coyne would be in the audience and raise some questions about addiction in particular, and about whether compelling somebody to play all the time is a good thing to do, and whether we need to be responsible with respect to our game design to have an off switch, or to be able. Those are some of the mitigations that were discussed, and whether we really should be making things as addictive as they could be. So those are just two that I highlight. I don't know, Dave, do you want to highlight another one, or yeah?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so maybe I'll highlight kind of quickly two other ones. So at the first year level, I mentioned CSE 111, 148, kind of introductory computer science courses in which we kind of look at different data structures for the first time, like trees and graphs and that sort of thing. So the first module that we developed was on contact tracing and privacy. So this was kind of during the COVID-19 pandemic, contact tracing representing kind of contacts through a graph data structure, and thinking about this really important public health question of how might we kind of detect contacts trace contacts, and then by this kind of like detect vectors of spread of a virus like COVID-19. And there were some really important trade-offs that we looked at relating to kind of data collection to be able to, for example, build a graph, and then what kind of privacy implications there were. And one of the, I think, really cool things about that module is we were able to kind of tie that directly to a particular approach that had been used by the Canadian government to build the COVID-19 kind of contact tracing app for Canada. In a second year software design course, CSE 207, for those of you who know the computer science course codes, this is a course in which students work in a team to build a software project, to kind of design and build a fully functioning application. And the embedded ethics module in that course concerns disability and accessibility and universal design. So really kind of, I think, prompting students to get out of the natural habit of thinking from just their own perspective of building software that maybe works for their particular group members, because of course they have a lot of freedom in kind of designing software, and thinking in particular about how to make sure that or how to take into account considerations of making sure that the software that they're producing is accessible for everyone, and kind of like what does that look like from kind of a disability lens, and then what does that look like in terms of the actual software engineering practices that we can use to kind of put that in place. So hopefully that gives you a taste of the variety of the modules that we had, and also how important it was for us to really try to find pairings that were really emerging from the actual content of the courses themselves.
Thank you so much.
I was going to say one other thing about the first year course on contact tracing. We had a lot of fun developing that module because we wanted to do discovery learning, and so we wanted to create data where students could sort of infer salacious things about people from where they were. So the students had a lot of fun, speculating, oh, gee, this person and this person seem to be spending a lot of time together, and maybe they're dating, or all these people must work together, and oh, this person must be on vacation. Anyways, it was lots of fun to create the data, and a lot of fun, I think, for the students in the classroom to benevolently sort of speculate and really discover, my goodness, you can infer or speculate about a lot of things that are very private for people just from their location data, and as a collective, and some sort of side knowledge about how people operate. So yeah.
Just a quick question. I'm thinking about like all those different modules. How do you think the curriculum might adapt to the recent boom in LLMs and AI? Maybe do you see there's some pivot or maybe additions to the modules that you would make in the coming, maybe, I don't know, five years or 10 years, what the scale might be?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question.
As new technology comes out, yeah.
And yes, and in fact we've even talked about developing a suite of modules that are specific to AI, because I think some of the issues that relate to either not just to generative AI, to large language models, are really very unique, and they're things that are really important to and broadly impactful. AI is impacting and impacted by geopolitics. It's impacting the environment. It is impacting jobs. It is impacting the types of jobs that we're going to be creating, that we're going to have in the future. There's so many important issues, and I really believe at the University of Toronto, because we're a top university in Canada, and because we have such a concentration of AI faculty in our department, excellent, outstanding AI faculty in our department, including Jeff Hinton, who's the Nobel laureate, who's spoken very very eloquently about the risks of AI, that it behooves us in some way to have more curriculum and more discussions, whether it's embedded ethics or whether it's through some sort of other vehicle remains to be seen. There are always, how do we reach, whenever we think about some of these things, we think about how we're going to reach the most people in a constructive and impactful way. And I think we're still having those discussions, but there's certainly a lot of appetite at the university for really educating educating and empowering our student body. Oh, sorry, Dave.
Yeah. I'll just add one. That was very well said, Sheila. I think the only other thing that I'll add relating to kind of this last point about kind of expanding or kind of doing new things is even though I think we're very proud, of course, of the program that we put together, and we hope it continues, and we're seeing it continue. I think one of the kind of downstream effects of this work is it's created more spaces within our department and also beyond our department for more people to be having lots of conversations about ethical impact of AI technology kind of more broadly. And of course, we're not, E3I is not unique in this, but I think that one of the things that I would love to see in the future is more people discussing these issues, more instructors, more departments. Like this isn't going to be just, I think E3I will play an important role in discussions in the future, but I don't think we want to play a singular role. That these initiatives are, these issues are kind of bigger than I think any one particular program to address, and this is going to be something that we kind of look at it sort of like the network across the university.
And I will add, and that's why events such as this are so important and so important for everybody to sort of lean in and play their part in encouraging these discussions and bringing people together with different viewpoints to really understand how we can address some of these very impactful issues.
Thank you. It's amazing as students, I think sometimes we get caught up in, oh, I need to get this grade, I need to complete this assignment. And so to hear all the thoughtfulness and design of what goes behind designing a module or any course that you've taught in the past is really great to hear as students who maybe haven't done that before. It's hard to think about it from the other side of the table. Do you still have a question?
I guess it's also related to how you see E3I going beyond in the future. Have you ever considered, because there's so many different modules, and you talked about how some of them couple together just about AIs and LLMs and the more recent sort of changes within the industry. Do you see there being a future where instead of being just modules within a course across many different courses, but having sort of a suite of courses just specifically for ethics and combining all of those topics together?
So the question, just to paraphrase, is because we have so many different modules, have we thought about sort of combining them together into a one, especially related to LLMs and some of what's going on, whether we might combine it into one course. Sorry, that doesn't do quite justice, but an approximation. So I will say that we have had an ethics and society, a computer science and society course for maybe 30 years, and some of our esteemed senior colleagues have been on the ground floor thinking about these things for a long time. And one of the things that when we first started E3I, we wanted to do something different than that course. So that course is an excellent course. It's a third-year course. And to an extent, and it's an optional course, which means that the people who take it are often people who already have an interest in these topics and some commitment to learning more. And I think one of the things we wanted to do with E3I was to touch everybody in first year, touch everybody in second year, just to get people thinking about it in the context of the technical material that they were learning. But yes, it's a great idea, and indeed at the especially now, because there's so much. I would say, I guess for me, thinking about AI, there's just so many dimensions to AI safety and to ethical issues relating to AI that it would be really interesting to have a course at either the undergraduate level or the graduate level. And there is a course at the graduate level that one of my colleagues is just starting to offer. But it would be nice to have something at the undergraduate level as well. We're always struggling with resources, both people to teach courses and space in our curriculum. So that's something that I'm sure David can speak to with.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, plugging CSC 300 Computers in Society, if that's a course that is not on your radar, but you're interested in exploring more of these issues, that's a course that you could take for sure, CSC 300. I think one of the things that I think we've done particularly, one of the things that was kind of deliberate in the design of the program was to go to where the students were already at. So indeed, kind of paraphrasing what Sheila said, students were already taking CSC 300 and that was great, but it was an elective course. It wasn't a required course for our program, so there were lots of computer science students who were not taking this course, maybe because they weren't interested or they didn't think that it was important to their education. And one of the structural things I think is really important for the E3I program is that it is embedding modules in courses that one are required at the first and second year level, but also that are really kind of spread out at the third and fourth year level. And I think this was important, both practically in order to reach students where they were at, but also to really, really underscore this point that the ethical and societal implications of their technical studies are not like a separate thing from their technical studies. Like maybe you literally say them in different sentences or maybe different lectures, but they're all part of the unified study of this particular technology or this particular domain of technology. One of the things that we sometimes see in offering a separate course is that it kind of provides the opportunity for students to sort of compartmentalize a little bit, say that, okay, these are going to be my quote unquote technical computer science courses, and this is going to be my ethics course or my computers and society, or my society course. And that's not to say that all students have this mindset, or not to say that that's not the best thing, but it's something that I think is a structural limitation in having separate courses. So while we do have CSC 300, which I think is a great course, and actually we have other courses at in the Faculty of Arts and Science that explore these issues in more depth. I'll plug a course that Stephen Coyne kind of designed in his teaching, which is PHL 277, Ethics and Data. This is a great course offered by the Department of Philosophy. Steve Coyne's teaching it, he's fantastic. So while there are other courses that actually we've been trying to promote within our embedded ethics modules as sort of like if you want to go deeper or find out more, here's some courses that you can take. We're very happy with kind of the existing structure of embedded ethics the way that it is. But all that doesn't preclude expanding on these further, especially in the area of AI ethics.
Okay. Thank you. That was an amazing panel. We are out of time. If anyone has any questions, maybe we can send out like the course, the website, and also emails. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
We'll have a 5-minute break before we continue to our next talk, which is Professor Benjamin Sanchez Langeling. He is a professor in the chemical engineering department, and he'll be talking about AI automation and how that affects scientific discovery as a chemical engineer himself.
Yes, sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was really, yeah, really great. Yeah.